Hello, this is Jared Deeble, presenting my lecture on Chapter 5 for Market Segmentation and Marketing Strategies. So we'll go ahead and jump right in here. So the chapter starts off talking about millennials. Millennials in specific are known as the connected generation. So they are those between ages 18 and 24. We know that in the 1960s, the people that fell in between this age group were known as the boomers, or the 1980s were known as Gen X. So millennials have an enormous influence over a lot of things in our culture, being food, music, media, etc. And the book talks quite a bit about this and their sphere of influence. So the millennial sphere of influence are those that we actually influence in regard to marketing. So that's going to be people that fall between the ages 14 to 35. So those are not the people that are millennials. Some of them may be, but those are actually the entire scope of their influence. So that encompasses about 2.3 billion people, or 36.6% of the population. That's as of 2010. So when we talk about needs-based marketing, and millennials in specific, we're going to be talking a lot about usage, demographics, what are their needs. We really need to hone in on what pertains specifically to our target market. Price, problem solving, what are they looking for essentially? And when we're talking about millennials in specific, let's give a very generic example. These are the connected generation. They're on Facebook and YouTube, and they want the latest iPhone or laptop. They're not necessarily out there in the market for Metamucil. They might be, but that's going to be pertaining more towards our elder generation. So when we talk about needs-based marketing, segmentation, there's a process that comes along with this. The first thing that we need to do in this process is we need to identify our customers' needs. So the important thing to do is to allow the customer and their needs to identify, or help you to identify that target market. And then we're going to go into the demographics of that target market and the lifestyle forces and the usage behavior to pinpoint our target segment. So kind of to go a little bit further into that is we don't want to just start off with demographics. Our book gives the example of, we're trying to sell or create a marketing campaign around a financial market product offering. So if we jump specifically into demographics, we might have age, income, education, a potential investment amount, the frequency of transactions, investments purchased. So when we take all of those different variables into place, or demographics, that gives us potentially 729 market segments, which is just an astronomical amount of market segments we could be catering towards. So we're really going to allow their needs to drive us to our target market, and then we're going to base it on demographics. So let's talk about the steps in the process. So we've already talked a bit about needs, but there's a 7-step process in really creating a good marketing campaign or identifying our target market segment. So first it starts with the segment identification, then segment attractiveness, segment profitability, then we go to segment positioning, lastly segment strategy, also known as the acid test, and then when we really want to implement this towards our target segment, there's a couple more things that we need to take in consideration that is going to be known as a mixed strategy. So identification. After we've identified based on needs, let's go ahead and take some of our measurable demographics or lifestyles or usage behaviors and use those to identify our particular market. So for the sake of my lecture here, we're going to be talking about selling shoes. So we know that everyone uses shoes or wears shoes, but that doesn't really narrow it down for us. So then we want to kind of throw in the demographic of, well, maybe it's kids, they like light up shoes, or teens might be more apt to buy athletic shoes, or millennials, they might be in athletic shoes or something more fashionable, or the elderly might prefer something more with some more support or comfortability. So let's talk about segment attractiveness. So what makes one segment attractive over another? Who's going to spend the most money? Who's going to buy? Where's the competitiveness? There's a lot to take into consideration here. Who's got access? And that being the kids, the teens, the adults, the seniors. Who am I going to? Who's going to be most attractive to me to sell to? Which stems off to profitability. So a business may identify a target market, however, narrow down to a more profitable segment is what we want to do, essentially. So who's going to buy my shoes at a premium price? Who's going to buy in more volume? Who's got the access? Who has disposable income? These are all things to consider. Although kids might buy light-up shoes and it may fulfill their need of a fun shoe and footwear that takes care of their primitive need to cover their feet, they may not have a lot of disposable income to spend on my product. So unless I'm pushing it out there at a high profit margin, it may not make sense to target that demographic. So if I'm going to talk about athletic shoes, let's talk about segment positioning. So this is where I deliver a customized value proposition that delivers value to a target customers in each segment, or target customers I've identified in each segment. This includes benefits the customer is looking to purchase on. So let's talk again, like I said, athletic shoes. So teens, they may have less disposable income, but they need something more durable. You have fashionable shoes. So we're going to try to add value to this target demographic by delivering a quality sneaker that also looks cool. So that's going to fulfill their need in a couple different ways and add value. So once I've done that, I want to take my target demographic, or my pool of teens who are going to be, I'm looking at creating this marketing campaign around athletic shoes, and I want to use a strategy called segment strategy, also known as the acid test. So this is where we use something called storyboards. Storyboards have been used in marketing for years. What they do is essentially kind of put a little snapshot together of a potential marketing campaign, and we bring in our group of teens, and we have narrowed down to our specific market segment. Maybe it's teenage men or women, or of lower income areas or higher income areas, or from the Midwest, or what have you. And then once we've gotten our group together, we're going to provide them these storyboards. So on the first snapshot, it might have the headlight, "Run faster." These tennis shoes are going to make you run faster, and their benefits that they're lightweight and they come at a mid-ranged price. And then we're going to show them another one that says, a longer lasting pair of tennis shoes. So, the benefits here is you can buy one pair of tennis shoes that's going to last you the life of two regular or traditional athletic tennis shoes. And then lastly, I might give them a snapshot that says, protect from ankle sprains or injuries. So the benefits there is you're gonna have ankle support, and this might be something they prefer out of their athletic shoes. And what I'm going to do is ask my target group to narrow down and provide feedback, so I can really hone in and develop a specific marketing strategy that's going to be implemented towards this target market. But that's not necessarily the end of my journey before I launch this campaign. So that brings me to a marketing mix strategy. So although we know exactly, who we're selling to, where we're adding value, what's who's going to be the most profitable, where in the country, all these things we've considered, but there are a couple things that we haven't considered, and that is, one is going to be distribution, and then the second one is going to be promotion. So let's talk about distribution for a second. maybe I've chosen to sell, teens athletic shoes, but how are they going to get them? How are they going to have access? Is this something, am I going to launch these brick and mortar at a store in the mall? Is that necessarily the way that buying is going now? Teens don't have cars. They may not be out as much. Well, not all teens have cars. Some do. But they don't have as much access to the mall. But what about online? Everyone's buying off Amazon. Lots of teenagers buy off Amazon today. So maybe that's going to be the more profitable or better approach to distribution of my product. And then lastly, we're going to consider the promotion. So am I just going to throw a dart at the calendar and decide, wow, we're just going to launch our new athletic tennis shoes on this day? Or am I going to consider holidays? Am I going to consider, maybe I pick a date several weeks out from basketball season because my tennis shoes pertain more to basketball players. Or maybe I decide to launch on Black Friday or the beginning of the school year when I know parents are taking their kids out to buy more tennis shoes. So those are all things to take into considering in our marketing strategy and its implementation. I hope that you enjoyed this lecture and have an awesome day.